All right. So we've talked a little bit about estimating the cost of college. Um, uh, what is the overall cost of attendance going to be? And now we get down to okay, it's time to start thinking about paying for college. All right. College is expensive. Not going to lie. Very, very expensive at this point. And many of us are going to say, I can't afford to pay for college. Um, some of the schools you guys are looking at are $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Um, how do I do that? Right, I need help. I want help. Okay. The good thing is that most people will qualify for some sort of financial aid. Okay. The real question becomes how much and what types of aid do you qualify for? One of the ways that your colleges do this is by calculating what they call the expected family contribution, or the EFC. You're going to see this a lot in your financial aid paperwork. Um, this is really a measure of your family's financial strength. It is not necessarily the amount of money that your family is going to lay out for college, nor is it a measurement of the amount of aid you're going to get, but it is a number that they can use to gauge where are you in the financial spectrum, and how much aid do you qualify for. Okay. The things that kind of go into the expected family contribution are looking at your taxed and untaxed income, assets your family might have, any benefits that they're receiving, like unemployment or Social Security, the size of your family, and the number of family members in college during the year. Um, uh, for me, as an example, middle class average family, and my parents, I have two brothers, there are three guys in the family, and all of us were in college at the same time. My younger brother is a year younger than we are, than CP and I are. So at any point in time there were three of us in college. So the fact that they were going to pay three college tuitions all of a sudden now made a difference, right? That was a lot of money to pay for. So you're going to look for something called the expected family contribution. And we're going to use this to try to figure out how much aid do you need? How much aid do you qualify for? All right, and we'll explain a little bit how this is calculated here in a second. So, um, the government, what does the government consider to be need? How do they determine this? They do this through just a very small formula here called taking the cost of your college and subtract out your family's expected contribution. And the difference there is really the need. Um, my college costs this, I can pay this. All right, the difference is going to be the need that you have. So here's an example. Maybe college A costs $23,500 to attend all in, and your expected family contribution is determined to be $5,000. So when we do the math, carry the one, you get a need of $18,500. Right. So there is the difference between what your family can contribute and what the total cost is. So we're going to have to figure out how to get you $18,500 in order to cover the difference. Maybe college B only costs $14,500. And when the expected family contribution goes in, you have a need of $9,500. Okay. College C, I hope you don't get cut off there. College C, maybe college C costs $4,500, and your expected family contribution is $5,000. So in this point, for this college, you have no need because your family's contribution can cover the total cost of attendance. All right. So maybe a couple of things about need when it comes to like calculating this number. Chances are your family contribution is probably going to stay the same no matter what school you go to, right? Because the other factors with income and assets and family members doesn't change from school to school. So that what your family can and should afford will kind of be the same. But need is going to differ based on each school. If you are going to go to a state college where the tuition is much lower versus some very, very fancy private college, right? Tuition rates, if you're going to a college that costs $60,000 a year, you have a lot more need at that college than you do at a state school. Right? So financial aid, for the most part, is primarily based on need. It's all based on need. Can anyone get help paying for college? Yes. But it's going to depend on the types of aid you get and how much of it you get. Okay. But most financial aid that most of us think about is primarily based on a need system, need-based aid. Okay. So really the question is, how do I actually prove it? Everyone can't just say, give me money. I need help. College is expensive, right? But you have to prove that there's need. All right. And that's this process, which many of you have already done, is the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, FAFSA. If you're not familiar with this term, you will be soon when you start applying for colleges. So the FAFSA, FAFSA.ed.gov, excuse me. Okay. The FAFSA is this application. It is lengthy paperwork. I'll show you an example of it to be able to lay out a lot of your financials, your family's financials, so that we can calculate how much your need is, what's the expected family contribution, and how much need do you have. And the colleges will use this information to try to put together their aid packages, right? This is what we can offer you to help you with paying tuition. Okay. The FAFSA is kind of straightforward at this point, even though it is a complicated form, but I think the process is pretty straightforward. You're going to go to fsaid.ed.gov. I think you're going to also go to fafsa.gov. And you're going to first set up an account with them. They call it the FSA ID, the Federal Student Aid ID. And you're going to kind of create your account. And you're going to need that account or that PIN number to be able to file aid. You're going to need that for 4 years. If you're going to go to if you're going to undergraduate school for a 4-year degree, you're going to need to have the same account for 4 years going forward. So you're going to go to the Federal Student Aid website and be able to just set up an account. You can also go to studentaid.ed.gov. Okay. Once you have your aid number, then you can actually fill out the FAFSA. You can do it online, or there is now an app, the My Student Aid app, and you can fill it out right on your mobile phone there. Okay. Check your colleges with filing deadlines. Some of them are going to need certain paperwork in order to draft up your financial aid packages. In New York State, for the 2020-2021 school year, you have to file by June 30th, 2021. Obviously, if you were to come on later, let's say you don't go to school in the fall, but you start in the spring, you can file a FAFSA later on. But different, maybe individual schools have earlier deadlines. So just check with your school. That's going to be check with your school or the studentaid.ed.gov website. They can definitely give you all those dates there every year. You're going to have to file a FAFSA each year you are applying for aid. This is not a one-time deal you do at the beginning of your freshman year. It's going to be every year you have to re-enroll. For the sake of argument, right now your parents make X and you will file this year and you get financial aid. Well, next year, mom and dad win the lottery, they win Powerball, and all of a sudden now your income skyrockets. Well, guess what? Your need has changed. Your expected family contribution will have changed. And vice versa. Our income was here, and then maybe a parent gets laid off or loses their job. Well, all of a sudden now our income has changed, and we want to refile so that we can change our financial status, so we can maybe get more aid. So you do have to do this every year you're in college. Okay. In order to fill out the FAFSA, you're going to need a lot of financial documents. If your parents are, obviously your parents are already paying their taxes, so a lot of their tax information can be found with their tax return. You'll need your Social Security number. You'll need your parents' federal income tax returns. If you are filing taxes, you will need your tax information too. The W-2 forms, remember we talked about this in budgeting, is the record of your income, so those statements that show how much income you have made in different places. Records of other untaxed income, some of the benefits your parents or your family may take on or have. Current bank statements, records of investments, how much do you have in the bank, that type of stuff. And if you're not a U.S. citizen, you'll need your alien registration card. Federal student aid is not, if I'm not mistaken, is not eligible to non-U.S. citizens. Right? So the other thing to think about here is that you need your tax documentation and your parents' tax documentation. Obviously, if you haven't filed taxes, this is easier for you. But if you have actually filed taxes before, or if you have a W-2 that records income, we need to know about the student and we need to know about the parent. Because guess what, folks? The government sees you as an adult now. When you're applying for college, you are an adult, right? So we need to know about you and we need to know about your parents. Because at the end of the day here, a lot of the financial aid that's going to come out is coming out in your name, not your parents' names. Okay, so that's why we're going to need your information and your parents' information. Okay, let me just quickly show you what the FAFSA looks like. Sorry. So this is a PDF copy of the FAFSA. Most of you are probably going to fill this out online. I will post this with this video so you can just see it. I'm going to skip down to the form itself, right? So it's a tax form, basically. There's a lot of information here. I'll get down to some of this stuff here. So have you filed a tax return? What form did you file out? Let's take a look at your adjusted gross income. And it even tells you like what lines on your IRS form. So on your tax form, I need the number from line 7. On the tax form, I need line 13 minus blah, 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 right? So there's a lot of details here. What is the current balance of cash savings and checking accounts? What is the net worth of your investments, right? So here's all that data. Okay, the student's untaxed income. So you're going to fill out a whole bunch of this stuff out. And if you have all that tax documentation in front of you, hopefully these should be very easy to find. If you don't, then you got to like stop what you're doing and go find all the other stuff. So it helps to have all those documents I laid out kind of in front of you before you start to fill out the FAFSA. Okay? So collect all these things together. When you fill out the FAFSA, you send it into the government. Okay, and here's what happens: you get your PIN and you fill out the FAFSA. You send your information to the government. The Federal Student Aid Office takes a look at all of this documentation, and they produce 2 items. One is that says financial report. A financial need report is sent to your school. So all that data that you just put in there about your financials in the FAFSA gets sent to your college. Right. The other thing that gets generated is called your student aid report, the SAR. Your student aid report is basically a summary of everything that was in your FAFSA. And I believe they come back with the expected family contribution in that document, and they send that back to you. It is important that you review the student aid report. Let's say you made a mistake in filing the FAFSA. You misquoted your income or something like that, and you have to make corrections. They're going to ask you to do that in the student aid report. If you didn't have actual numbers, but you were estimating like gross income or investments or in these other financial numbers, if you guessed, they're going to ask you to make changes on the student aid report and send it back. Okay. Your college is going to look at your FAFSA and the financial need report, compile it all together, take the expected family contribution, and then develop a package that will basically figure out here's the cost of attendance, here's the expected family contribution, and how are we going to make up for the difference? How are we going to compensate for your need? And with the funds that they have from their own scholarship pools and financial aid pools and other monies that they have access to, they can now send this back to you and say, here, this is how we're ready to help you pay for college. All right. So that's really kind of the whole little bit of the process in a nutshell here. What is the role of the FAFSA? The role of the FAFSA is to prove aid. It's an application for financial aid, but it's really meant to prove that you have a need. And how much need does your family have? Okay. The expected family contribution, big important vocabulary word there. Expected family contribution defines a little bit and describes with a number what your family can afford and helps your college to gauge how much need you have. Again, it is not necessarily the amount of money you're going to have to pay, but it's a way to kind of gauge people on need. All right. The FAFSA does have to be filled out annually. Right. So every year you're going to college, you're going to fill the FAFSA out. Okay. And when your school receives the FAFSA and the financial aid report, they can now put together a financial aid package for you. Okay. On this posting, I will also put the copy of the FAFSA forms. If you want to haven't already taken a look at it in depth, you can. And I'll put some of the links to some of the great websites that have a lot more information about the FAFSA. We gave you the quick 12-minute explanation here, but I'll send you some other links that have more detailed information about this whole process and what's involved.